Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. For those that are new to my YouTube channel, subscribe immediately to see more content, and also leave a comment down below to suggest more amazing kinds of videos. Bring in part 9 of What If Spider-Man MCU entered Damnchi. Link down in description of the fan fiction This What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 17 Dungeon Pursuit. Peter was rudely jolted awake from his couch by someone vigorously shaking him. He cracked his eyes open, and immediately found himself face to face with a generous display of cleavage nestled between an enormous pair of boobs, mere inches from his face. His eyes widened to the size of saucers as he blinked, trying to shake off the grogginess. His gaze followed the mesmerizing curve upwards until he met the enthusiastic eyes of his goddess, who was leaning over him. Mentally, he grumbled, "Geez, woman, you're going to give me a heart attack first thing in the morning." Hestia's bubbly curiosity was palpable as she asked, "Peter, tell me everything about your date yesterday." Peter sighed, thinking, "Seriously, you woke me up for this? And with an eyeful of your bosom to boot." He stifled a yawn and looked around. Last night, he had returned late, and Belle and Hestia were already asleep, with Hestia cuddled on top of Belle like a human blanket. "Really, Hestia," he muttered, "this is why you wake me up? Couldn't your interrogation wait until, I don't know, after breakfast?" But Hestia, unfazed by his grumbling, bounced on the balls of her feet, her excitement uncontainable. "Nope, spill the beans, Peter. Did she like your new dress? Did you have a romantic dinner? Did you?" Peter held up a hand, trying to slow the torrent of questions. All right, calm down. It was eventful." Hestia's eyes widened even more, if that was possible. "Eventful? Like how? Did you get into some trouble?" Then she narrowed her eyes and added suspiciously, "She didn't take advantage of you, did she? Is your, virtue still intact?" He heard a stifled chuckle at that question and glared at Belle, who was sitting on the bed, trying hard not to laugh. "Traitor," Peter thought. Rubbing the back of his neck, Peter sighed. "No, my chastity is still intact, thank you for asking." Hestia blushed slightly at that. Peter continued, "Well, there was this one moment when a puffed-up cat guy tried to ruin our dinner. Apparently, he was Alan, the fastest adventurer in the city, and the vice captain of the Freya Familia." Belle and Hestia both gasped at this. "Alan," Belle said, his eyes wide. "He's supposed to be really dangerous. I heard everyone is afraid of him." Peter nodded. "Yeah, he tried to throw his weight around, but I, handled it." Hestia leaned in, eyes gleaming with curiosity. "Handled it? How?" Peter smirked. "Let's just say I made him the laughing stock of the night. By the end of it, the whole tavern was in stitches." Hestia pinched the bridge of her nose, exasperated. "First you challenge an executive of the Loki Familia, and now you humiliate the vice captain of the Freya Familia. Just what am I going to do with you? You do realize that the Freya Familia is the most powerful familia in the world, right?" Peter shrugged nonchalantly. "Hey, all in a day's work. Besides, what's life without a little excitement?" Hestia sighed. "What happened after that?" Peter recounted the details of the confrontation, explaining the timely intervention by the Ganesha Familia. Hestia shook her head. "You were lucky some members of the Ganesha Familia were there. I'm going to his party tonight, so I'll be sure to thank him. But you need to be careful, Peter. Freya is a whimsical goddess, and she can easily crush us. Anyhow, I'm sorry your first date got ruined like that. What happened after that?" Peter smiled. "Our date didn't exactly get ruined. It was my best date ever. I swung her to the top of Babel Tower." Hestia's eyes widened in surprise. "You swung her to the top of Babel Tower? How? What do you mean by that?" Peter grinned. "You know, web swinging. Like, using webs to swing from building to building. It's a bit of a rush, and the view from up there is unbeatable. Maybe I'll swing you up there someday. You have to experience it to really get it." Hestia, though curious, shook her head with a smile. "No thank you, I prefer taking the elevator." Peter pondered the existence of elevators in this world but decided he shouldn't be surprised by this world's strange mix of medieval and modern magical technology anymore. Maybe he could look into this magical stuff more. If he could find a way to generate electricity he wouldn't have to worry about Jane running out of power. Hestia huffed impatiently. "Then what happened?" Peter replied, "We enjoyed the view of the city from up there. I played some music, and we had a picnic." Hestia's eyes widened. "Hold on, back up. You played music, You mean you were carrying some musical instrument? Peter smirked. Actually, it was Jane who played the music. Jane, care to demonstrate? From where his suit was hanging, Jane's voice chimed in. Sure thing, Peter. A modern song began playing, filling the room with a sound that was entirely foreign to the world of Orario. Belle's jaw dropped. Wow, I've never heard music like that in my life. Hestia whispered to Peter, neither have I. Then she turned and started playfully swatting at Peter. What an ungrateful child I have. How dare you hide such beautiful, delightful things from me? She turned towards the suit. Jane, I will keep you all to myself, and you will play such wonderful music for me all day. I don't have a job anymore, so I'm free. Jane replied smugly, I am not a jukebox. Her response elicited a puzzled, huh, from Hestia and a confused, what's a jukebox? From Belle. Peter couldn't help but laugh. Think of it like a magical music box with a lot more options. Belle lamented, I have never seen a magical music box. Hestia caught Peter's eye and subtly shook her head. Peter briefly wondered, these guys have magical lamps, elevators, and refrigerators, but they haven't managed to make magical music boxes yet. He hastily changed the topic. Then we flew down from the tower using my web wings. For a brief moment, Hestia and Belle were absolutely quiet, staring at him as if he had grown a second head. Belle's eyes were wide with disbelief as he finally broke the silence. What do you mean, flew? Web wings, you can actually fly. Peter sighed. It's technically gliding, you know, like flying squirrels. While Hestia nodded in understanding, her eyes still wide with curiosity, Belle remained perplexed. Huh, squirrels can fly. Peter sighed again, rubbing his temples. Not regular squirrels, flying squirrels are a special variety. Jane, can you show him? Jane, responding from the suit, said, while I don't have actual footage of a flying squirrel, I can create a rendering. Several laser beams emitted from the suit's golden strands and converged in front of it, creating a hologram of a flying squirrel gliding gracefully through the air. Belle's eyes widened even further, his jaw dropping in amazement. Wow, what sort of magic is this? He bounced forward, trying to touch the hologram, only for his hand to pass through it. He tried several times, his face a mix of wonder and confusion, causing Peter to chuckle at the endearing sight. Hestia, equally captivated, leaned in closer, her eyes sparkling with fascination. Peter smiled at their reactions. It's pretty cool, right? Belle, still awestruck, nodded slowly. It's incredible. So, you can glide like that? Peter grinned, nodding. Exactly. Just like that. Makes for a quick getaway or a dramatic entrance. Hestia looked at Peter, her expression a mix of curiosity and exasperation. You really are full of surprises, aren't you? Peter grinned. You have no idea. So, after we glided down, we had a romantic walk through the city and ended the night with some delicious pastries from a street food stall Tiona recommended. Belle looked at him in awe. Wow, that sounds amazing. Hestia nodded, finally smiling. I'm glad you had a great time, Peter. Just try to avoid any more confrontations with powerful familias, okay? And swinging to the top of Babel Tower and flying around isn't exactly keeping a low profile. You should be more careful. You don't want to attract the attention of other gods. Peter chuckled. I know. I'll keep my adventures a bit more grounded from now on. Hestia raised an eyebrow. I'll believe it when I see it. Just remember, we're a small familia. We can't afford to make too many enemies. Peter nodded, his expression turning serious. I get it, Hestia. I promise I'll be more cautious. Belle chimed in, and if you ever need help, you know I'm always here. Peter flashed a grateful smile at Belle. Thanks, buddy, it's good to know I have you in my corner. Then, changing the subject, Peter revealed their plans for the next date. So, Tiona's taking me down to the Under Resort tomorrow. It's apparently located on the 18th floor of the dungeon. Belle's eyes widened with excitement. Whoa, the 18th floor. That's deep, and there's a whole town down there. Hestia nodded. I've heard of the town. I think it's called Riviera. Peter turned to Hestia with a hopeful expression. Hey, Hestia, do you think I could stay overnight in Riviera? Tiona said it's best if we do so. We'll have plenty of time to explore. Hestia's expression turned stern. Absolutely not. You're not staying out all night with a girl. End of discussion. Peter grinned, teasingly. You're not my mother, you know. Hestia's glare could have frozen lava. I am still your goddess and you are my child. I absolutely forbid it. Peter raised his hands in surrender, grinning. Okay, Okay, my goddess. But you do realize that when I start delving into the deeper floors, I'll have to spend days in the dungeon, right? Hestia sighed, that's a different matter. But for now, no overnight stays with strange girls. Bell, unable to contain himself any longer, burst out laughing from behind Hestia, clearly enjoying their banter. He even started mimicking Hestia's posture, shaking his finger at Peter and trying to imitate her stern stance through his laughter. Without missing a beat, Peter shot a playful web at Bell's mouth, effectively silencing him. Bell sputtered and flailed, trying to pry the webbing off. Hestia whirled around, her expression a mix of annoyance and amusement. Peter, she exclaimed, though a hint of a smile tugged at her lips. Peter grinned innocently, just a bit of friendly payback. He'll be fine in a minute. Bell, still muffled by the webbing, managed to give Hestia a thumbs up, his eyes wide with a mix of amusement and annoyance. Hestia couldn't help but laugh, finally giving in to the humor of the situation. All right, enough excitement for one morning. Free him, Peter, Hestia said, trying to stifle her laughter despite the admonishing tone. Peter dispelled his magic webs, freeing Bell's mouth. Bell took a deep breath, glaring at Peter with mock indignation. I'll get you back when you're least expecting it. Just you wait, he said, rubbing his jaw. Peter chuckled, patting him on the back. I'll be ready. Hestia, still chuckling, said, let's get some breakfast and prepare for the day. During breakfast, Peter and Bell started discussing the weapons they planned to buy from the Babel Tower. Hestia's ears perked up at their conversation. She asked them, what kind of weapons do you prefer? A plan was forming in the back of her mind. Peter said, I prefer short swords or sai. Something I can wield one-handed while still being able to cast my webs. Bell looked puzzled. What's a sai? Peter began describing it, and soon both of them launched into a detailed discussion about weapons. Bell mentioned wanting better daggers, but Peter suggested getting something with more reach for floor 10 or below. They debated swords, spears, axes, throwing knives, crossbows and other options. Peter suggested a katana, which confused Bell, leading him to ask what it was. As the discussion raged on, Hestia leaned her head on her palm, sighing in mild frustration. She realized her children had no clear idea of what weapons they truly wanted. Peter and Bell strolled into the blue pharmacy, where they were greeted by Naza. Bell whipped out the blue papilio wings from his backpack, and Peter couldn't help but chuckle as he noticed Naza wagging her thick tail in excitement. Wow, that was fast. I never expected you to get these wings so quickly. Blue papilio are quite rare. How did you find them? Naza inquired, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Bell opened his mouth to respond, but Peter jumped in quickly. We were just lucky, I guess, he said with a sly grin. He didn't want Bell to spill the beans about their raid on the pantry. Naza handed out some potion vials to them as payment. Peter eyed them closely, but without his mask, he couldn't discreetly ask Jane about their quality. Ever the gentleman with beautiful ladies, Bell asked Naza if she needed anything else. Well, there are some things I could use, but they're much deeper in the dungeon. I don't think you can reach those places right now, Naza replied. Bell piped up, Peter's going down to the 18th floor tomorrow on a date. Date on the 18th floor? Naza exclaimed, her eyes widening in surprise. Just who are you dating? Peter shot Bell a glare for his chronic lack of discretion. Bell, completely oblivious to Peter's silent warning, boasted, she's an Amazon from the Loki familia. Naza gasped and looked at Peter with wide eyes. You're the level 1 adventurer who defeated the Crusher. The entire city is buzzing with rumors about you. Peter sighed. Yeah, it's me. He made a mental note to give Bell another lecture on discretion, though he doubted it would do much good. Naza launched into a barrage of questions about Peter's encounter with Tiona, her excitement palpable, but he quickly cut her off. Sorry, Naza, but we're on a tight schedule today. Lots to do, you know. Catch you later. Wait, can you at least bring me some water from the Serenity Spring on the 18th floor? Naza pleaded, her eyes shimmering with hope. I promise I'll make it worth your while. Peter hesitated, feeling the pressure of her earnest gaze. I'm headed there for a date, not a quest, he explained, hoping to dissuade her. However, Naza's ears drooped, and she employed her secret weapon, the puppy eyes. Peter's resolve crumbled in an instant. Oh, all right, fine, he relented, defeated by her adorable charm. I'll see what I can do. As soon as he agreed, Naza's demeanor transformed, her ears perking up and her tail wagging with newfound excitement. Peter made a swift exit, regretting his weakness in the face of those irresistible puppy eyes. As they strolled towards the Babel Tower, Peter cornered Belle, shaking his head in disbelief. "Seriously, Belle, you've got to learn to zip it. Just yesterday you were spilling our secrets to the Loki familia. Have you completely forgotten what I told you?" Belle scratched his head sheepishly, a guilty grin spreading across his face. "Oops, my bad, but come on, Pete, I couldn't resist showing off a bit about your showdown with Tiona. You're practically a celebrity now." Peter rolled his eyes, unable to suppress a smirk. Yeah, but next time, remember we need to keep a low profile." Belle gave him a pointed glare. "Keep a low profile, you're one to talk," openly challenging members of Loki and Freya familia. Peter's smirk faltered, replaced by a sheepish smile. Belle had a point, maybe his own actions weren't exactly a shining example of keeping a low profile. Upon reaching the Babel Tower, Peter managed to locate the elevator. It was operated by a liftman, who controlled it with a simple handle to move it up or down. "Where do you want to go?" the liftman asked. Belle replied enthusiastically, "Hephaestus Familia weapons shops." The liftman promptly dropped them on the 4th floor. As they entered the shop in front of them, Peter felt like they had stumbled into a high-class art gallery instead of a weapons shop. The walls were painted gold, with decorative chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. Each weapon was showcased like a work of art, with proper lighting illuminating the intricate designs, gleaming in the light. The entire floor seemed to be completely empty except for a salesgirl sitting behind a posh counter. Peter and Belle's eyes widened as they noticed the exorbitant prices of the weapons on display, with way too many zeros. "Maybe we came to the wrong place," Belle suggested. Peter reminded him, "Aina did tell us to go to the 8th floor. The liftman dropped us off on the 4th floor. Let's go upstairs." With each floor they climbed, the shops seemed to become less posh, and the number of zeros in the weapon prices kept reducing. Finally, upon reaching the 8th floor, they saw that it was bustling with activity. Adventurers were haggling over prices with salesmen who operated from tiny stalls. The lively scene reminded Peter of the busy marketplaces of Orario, where street vendors shouted to attract customers while competing fiercely with one another. The air was filled with the sounds of lively bargaining and the occasional clinking of weapons being inspected. They noticed the price of a knife being displayed for only 5,000 valis. Belle exclaimed, "Finally, something I can afford." As Peter wondered aloud about the pricing differences between the various floors, a salesman overheard him. The salesman was an animal person, with fluffy dog ears poking out from his messy hair and a bushy tail swaying behind him. Despite his rugged appearance, his eyes sparkled with keen intelligence and a friendly demeanor. With a warm smile, the animal person explained the intricacies of the Babel Tower's floors. The 8th floor specializes in items made by level 1 blacksmiths who are trying to make a name for themselves, he elaborated. That's why they're so cheap. But don't underestimate them, you can still find some hidden gems and great bargains here. He then began showcasing the various weapons in his stall. Peter inquired, "Are you a blacksmith?" The dog person puffed up his chest proudly, "Yes, I am a blacksmith of the Hephaestus familia. I made every single one of these beauties," he said, showcasing his weapons. To Peter's untrained eyes, these weapons didn't look particularly high quality. He politely excused himself from the dog person and continued looking around. He put on his mask to interact with Jane discreetly. "Do you find anything interesting?" he asked her while scanning the endless stalls. Jane replied through the mask's earphones, "Yes, some of these weapons have abnormal radiation outputs." Peter's HUD suddenly started highlighting certain weapons with different colors. "What does that indicate?" he whispered, looking closely at one of the swords highlighted by his HUD. "According to my analysis, these weapons are a strange alloy of known metals and drop items from dungeon monsters," Jane replied. He noticed that the highlighted weapons usually had higher price tags. Belle was attracted to some ornate knives, but Peter's HUD indicated they were just plain metal. He stopped Belle from buying them, realizing that Belle seemed to prefer style over substance. "Belle, these knives are all show and no go," Peter said with a smirk. Belle looked a bit crestfallen but nodded, understanding Peter's point. "All right, I'll keep looking." Peter chuckled and patted Belle on the back. "We'll find you something that looks good and is actually useful. Let's keep searching." After searching around for some time, Peter found a dagger glowing with a multitude of colors in his HUD. Intrigued, he picked it up and asked Jane to turn off the HUD. The design reminded him of a Rambo knife, but its sharp edge was made of black metal while the rest of the blade gleamed steel. The knife was longer than the guild-issued dagger. He showed it to Belle, who seemed to like it immediately. "You've got a good eye," said a dwarf manning the stall. "That blade is enchanted to always remain sharp, and the edge is mithril. It can conduct magic. The knife costs 25,000 valis." Belle's expression dropped at the price, but Peter stepped in. "He doesn't know magic. We can only afford 15,000 valis." The dwarf shrugged. "Not my fault the kid doesn't know magic. 24,000 is my final offer." After some bargaining, Peter managed to get the price down to 20,000 valis, which Belle paid with a still dismayed expression. "Peter, don't you think it's too expensive?" Peter said, "Trust me, the knife is worth it. It's a lot better than the decorative knives you were eyeing." Belle mildly protested, "Those knives looked so cool." As they continued shopping, Peter bought a pair of plain-looking short swords for 20,000 valis, which Jane's spectral analysis indicated were pretty tough. He also helped Belle select a sword for 10,000 valis and bought a curved knife for himself to extract monster stones. Belle wanted to buy some armor, but no matter how much they looked, Belle didn't like any of them. Finally, they found themselves in a shop far larger than any of the stalls. At the back of the shop, Belle dug up some armor in a box. It was very lightweight but sturdy according to Jane's analysis. After Belle put it on, Peter admitted, "Okay, it looks cool and it's functional. Covers most of the vital areas while providing full flexibility of movement." Belle grinned, "See, I knew I'd find something good eventually." Peter chuckled, "All right, let's just hope it holds up when you need it." "And it only cost 10,000 valis," Belle added, looking pleased with his find. As they left the shop, Peter couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. They had managed to find some good gear without completely breaking the bank, and Belle seemed genuinely happy with his new purchases. Belle was locked in combat with a pair of war shadows, dual-wielding his new dagger and his guild-issued knife. His new enchanted blade sliced through the war shadows like butter, bringing a wide grin to his face. For the first time, Belle was able to extract the war shadow crystals without shattering them, a feat that filled him with satisfaction. Peter, on the other hand, was handling the situation with his usual nonchalance. He lazily webbed up a war shadow creeping up from his side, dispatching it with a casual flick of his new short sword into its eyes. Belle, still riding the high of his newfound efficiency, said enthusiastically, "Peter, you were right, this knife is awesome. So, how far down do we go today?" Peter replied while seeming distracted, "I haven't decided yet. By the way, we're being followed." He was actually reviewing Jane's video recordings through his HUD. A pair of girls had been trailing them since the Central Park, the big plaza surrounding the Babel Tower. Despite the significant time they spent shopping in the tower, when they returned to the ground floor, the girls were still waiting in the lobby and had started following them again discreetly as they made their way into the dungeon. In fact, if Peter didn't have his spider sense and Jane's assistance, he would have missed them altogether. Belle's eyes widened, his excitement morphing into cautious curiosity. "Followed? By who?" Peter shrugged, "Not sure yet. It's a pair of girls." Belle immediately asked, "Are they pretty?" Peter gave Belle a pointed look, his expression hidden behind the mask, but his silence spoke volumes. Despite not being able to see Peter's face, Belle squirmed under his gaze, feeling like he was caught red-handed. Finally, Peter broke the silence, his tone laced with amusement. "What is it with you and trying to pick up girls in the dungeon? You do know that damsels in distress wouldn't go following you around, spying on you in the dungeon, right?" Belle blushed furiously, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. Right, it's just some stupid idea my grandfather filled my head with. So, what's the plan?" Peter glanced at his HUD again, analyzing the situation. "We'll keep heading down to the 10th floor. If they follow us that far, we'll know they're serious. Just stay alert." Belle nodded eagerly, his grip tightening on his dagger. "Got it, let's give them a show they won't forget." A muffled sigh escaped Peter as he shook his head, the mask obscuring a flicker of concern for Belle's naivety and his wacky priorities. Chapter 18 The Web of Intrigue. Riva Blazeheart had resigned herself to what promised to be a thoroughly dull day. She and Nyra Frostclaw had been assigned by Lord Anansi to spy on some nobody level 1 from a virtually unknown familia, a task that seemed a complete waste of time. Yet, orders from their god, Anansi were non-negotiable. Riva stood tall and striking, her fiery red hair flowing freely in loose waves, cascading around her shoulders and down her back. Her piercing green eyes scanned the bustling lobby of Babel Tower with sharp intensity. She wore medium armor that was practical yet stylish, covering most of her body but still accentuating her feminine curves. The dark blue sheen of her armor contrasted beautifully with her hair, giving her a fierce yet elegant look. Discover more. Books, world-building guides, story planning apps, copyright protection services, character design tools, fan fiction community. Beside her, Naira Frostclaw, a werewolf, was the epitome of lithe grace. With her snowy white hair cascading down to her shoulders and her bright blue eyes sparkling with mischief, she looked every bit the playful wolf girl she was. Her light armor was designed for agility, showing just enough of her form to be alluring without sacrificing functionality. Her wolf-like ears twitched in time with the flow of adventurers around them, and her tail swayed lazily behind her as she leaned against the wall, trying to mask her impatience. "Ugh, I'm so bored," Naira complained, her voice tinged with frustration as she absently toyed with the hem of her adventurer dress, which dipped just enough to show a bit of cleavage. "Do you think those rumors about this level 1 are true? Could he really have defeated Loki Familia's level 5 crusher?" Riva sighed, crossing her arms over her chest and glancing at the elevator, which Peter and his white-haired companion had taken up to the tower. "It's impossible for a level 1 to even last 10 seconds against a level 5. And I heard this Peter guy registered as an adventurer less than a week ago. Maybe he's a veteran from outside Orario, falsifying his level." Naira considered this, still absently twirling a strand of her white hair around her finger. "Still, it's incredibly difficult to level up outside Orario. Did you notice the spider emblems on his strange armor? Maybe that's why Anansi is so interested in him." Riva nodded thoughtfully. "Spiders are definitely his thing. Could be a coincidence, but you know how Lord Anansi is, crafty and cunning, always finding amusement in the strangest places. He thrives on curiosity." Naira's ears perked up as she rolled her eyes. "Curiosity or not, I'd rather be doing almost anything else. I suppose it beats cleaning up after those giant spiders in Anansi's chamber though," she remarked with a bored expression, glancing towards the entrance lobby where adventurers of all sorts milled about, preparing for their dungeon dives. Naira and Riva, both strikingly attractive, inevitably drew appreciative glances from the people milling about. Naira noticed a blonde guy in heavy armor eyeing her and winked at him mischievously. Riva watched with a slight frown as the adventurer blushed and quickly turned away. "Must you always flirt so shamelessly?" Riva muttered, shaking her head. Naira chuckled. "It's harmless fun, Riva. Lighten up." Naira was getting increasingly restless after waiting for almost 2 hours. What can be taking them so long? "What do you think they're doing?" she asked impatiently. Riva shrugged, trying to suppress a smile. "Probably shopping for weapons and armor. Can't they do it any faster?" Naira huffed. Riva raised an eyebrow, amusement flickering in her eyes. "Didn't you take an entire day to select this armor?" Naira pursed her lips defensively. "That's different. A lady needs to look her best in all situations. Why would men need so long?" Riva chuckled. "Maybe they're comparing swords. You know, size matters in the dungeon." Naira smirked. "As if you would know anything about that. Have you ever been with a man?" Riva folded her arms defensively. "That's none of your business." Naira laughed teasingly. "So, you're still a virgin?" Riva flushed, retorting, "I have had my experiences." Naira remained skeptical. With whom?" Riva shot back, "Like I said, none of your business." Naira's eyes twinkled mischievously. "Hey, speaking of the guys we're following, aren't they both kinda cute? If you had to choose between Peter and his white-haired buddy, who'd it be?" Riva frowned. "Naira, can't you think about anything other than guys for even a minute?" Unfazed, Naira pressed on. "Oh, come on, would it kill you to loosen up a bit? Who would you pick?" Blushing, Riva muttered, "Fine, the white-haired one. He's kind of cute, alright." Naira's grin widened. "So you're into younger guys, huh? Good to know." Riva's face flushed a deeper red. Desperate to divert the topic, she shot back, "Alright, who would you choose?" Naira pondered for a moment before replying mischievously, "I'd choose both of them. I always wanted to have 2 men do me at the same time." Riva blushed deeply. "Ew, Naira." Naira grinned devilishly. "What, can't handle a little adventure?" Riva shook her head, still blushing. "You're incorrigible." Just then, Naira noticed Peter and his companion stepping out of the elevator. She whispered to Riva, "Don't turn back. The spider and the rabbit are back. Riva smirked knowingly. Spider and rabbit, huh? Interesting choice. Naira nodded with a sly grin. It suits them, don't you think? After waiting for both of them to enter the dungeon, Riva and Naira began to follow at a discreet distance. As they entered the first floor, Riva turned to Naira and asked, "You picked up their scent, right?" Naira smirked confidently. "Of course I did." As a werewolf, Naira possessed a keen sense of smell and was an excellent tracker, which was precisely why Anansi had chosen her for this spying mission. Riva and Naira continued to trail Peter and his companion through the dungeon, keeping a cautious distance. As seasoned level 4 veterans, they swiftly dispatched any monsters that dared to approach, shattering their crystal cores with precise strikes that reduced the creatures to dust in an instant. By the time they reached the 10th floor, Riva's spyglass had proven invaluable. A cherished gift from her sailor father, the golden and compact device folded down to just 4 inches. Intricate hieroglyphics etched into its surface granted it a unique charm, the ability to reveal its target in darkness or through fog, as long as they were within line of sight. This enchanted spyglass was why Riva was Anansi's go-to scout, or, as she humorously referred to herself, his designated peeper. The 10th floor was shrouded in thick fog, but Riva's spyglass easily pierced through the haze. Whispering to Naira, Riva pointed the spyglass towards Peter, observing him with enhanced clarity even from their concealed position. "Look at him," Riva murmured, adjusting the focus as Peter deftly trapped monsters with his webs before easily dispatching them. "He's really spider-like, isn't he? No wonder Lord Anansi is so intrigued." Naira glanced at her with a hint of envy. "I would be able to see him if you actually let me use your damn spyglass once in a while," she muttered, holding her hand out expectantly. Riva moved her spyglass away protectively. "This is the only thing of my father's I have left. I'm not letting anyone touch it," she said firmly. Naira huffed in irritation, folding her arms and muttering something under her breath. Despite the tension over the spyglass, Riva continued to observe Peter's extraordinary abilities. Riva watched intently as Peter expertly webbed the feet of a hulking orc, causing it to crash to the ground with a heavy thud. With a swift, practiced motion, he plunged his sword into the monster's brain, dispatching it instantly. Despite his ruthless efficiency, Peter's demeanor remained almost casual, indicating he was there more to support his white-haired companion than to seek glory himself. His sharp awareness was evident as he quickly turned, webbing a pair of imps sneaking up behind his partner. He dragged them effortlessly toward himself and dispatched them without breaking a sweat, his movements fluid and precise. Meanwhile, the rabbit guy, Peter's white-haired companion, was clumsily locked in combat with another orc. Riva, peering through her enchanted spyglass, noted the stark contrast in their fighting styles. The rabbit guy's swordplay was unrefined, lacking the finesse and grace expected at this depth of the dungeon. His awkward movements hinted at inexperience, yet he somehow managed to bring down the orc, albeit with significantly more effort than Peter. Riva, adjusting the focus of her spyglass to pierce the thick fog that blanketed the 10th floor, remarked, "Isn't their familia quite new? I heard it's less than a month old." Naira's wolf-like ears twitched with curiosity as she nodded. "Yeah, I heard Anansi mention it's only 2 weeks old. Why do you ask?" "It's strange," Riva continued, her tone laced with suspicion. "Not only is the spider guy handling himself well, but even the rabbit guy is managing down here. It took us over a year to reach this floor, and they're already here." Riva fine-tuned her spyglass, closely observing Peter's companion as he awkwardly parried another attack. "He's definitely awkward with his sword," she observed, noting the clumsy, unpolished movements. "Almost like he's never held one before. But he's still holding his own against these monsters. He's nowhere near as skilled as the spider guy, though." Naira, who couldn't see the adventurers clearly through the dense fog, commented with a hint of disbelief, "So, the rabbit guy can actually defeat the monsters here? Even though he fights like he's barely had any training?" Riva's brow furrowed in concentration as she continued to scrutinize the duo through her spyglass. "Yeah, his sword strikes are clumsy, but he's surviving. It's surprising, really. It's almost as if he's accustomed to wielding a different weapon. His movements are surprisingly fluid and don't quite match his current fighting style." Suddenly, Riva exclaimed, "Whoa." Naira turned to her curiously, prompting Riva to explain. The spider guy just jumped up to avoid a sonic blast from a bad bat behind him. He somersaulted midair, and in the middle of his flip, captured the bat with his web, dragging it down to the ground. "It's like he has eyes in the back of his head." Even the captain couldn't have pulled off a move like that. Riva and Naira continued trailing the two rookie adventurers until they entered a tunnel. The 10th floor was mostly composed of open areas, unlike the upper floors of the dungeon, which featured more tunnels. Riva glanced at the dark passage ahead. Do you know where this tunnel leads? Naira shrugged, her ears twitching. I haven't gone this way before. Should we follow them or wait here? Riva asked, a note of uncertainty in her voice. No way am I standing around aimlessly for hours again, Naira said firmly. For all we know, this tunnel might have another exit. I say we follow them. The girls waited a bit, giving the adventurers a head start before following them into the tunnel. With Naira's keen sense of smell, there was no risk of losing their targets. Peter led Belle into a side tunnel on the 10th floor, following a brief consultation with Jane. He had scanned detailed maps of the dungeon's upper floors from the library into Jane's database, and his preparation was now proving invaluable. This tunnel led to a small, secluded cave, a perfect location for their next move. Upon reaching the cave, Peter began to damage the dungeon walls. Belle, confused, asked, "Why are you doing that?" Jane's voice chimed in through the suit's speakers. Damaging the dungeon walls forces the dungeon to focus on repairing itself rather than spawning monsters. It's a common strategy adventurers use to take breaks. Peter nodded and added, exactly. This will give us some time to eat lunch and, with any luck, draw our pursuers in here so we can confront them. Belle looked intrigued. Pursuers? You mean those girls following us? Peter smiled. Yes. One of them is a redhead who's been spying on us with a telescope, and the other is a werewolf. Belle frowned in confusion. What's a telescope? Peter explained. It's a collapsible tube used to see things far away. Belle's eyes lit up with understanding. Oh, you mean a spyglass? Peter chuckled. Exactly. Peter removed his mask, sitting down with Belle a short distance from the cave entrance while keeping it within view. They quietly enjoyed their simple lunch of sandwiches, the secluded spot providing a brief, much-needed respite. As they ate, Peter suddenly raised a hand, signaling Belle to stay quiet. His gaze locked onto the cave entrance, eyes sharp with focus. In a few moments, two figures emerged from the tunnel's shadows. Without hesitation, Peter swiftly shot webs, ensnaring the intruders and sealing off the entire cave entrance in a sticky barrier. As he completed his work, he took a moment to observe their captives. The girls were strikingly beautiful, even by the high standards of this world, where many seemed to possess a supermodel's allure. As the girls struggled against their web bindings, each had a distinct reaction. The redhead sputtered, "Ew, gross," while the white-haired werewolf, eyeing the webs with a mischievous glint, quipped, "Kinky." Peter, feeling distinctly uncomfortable with the werewolf's attitude, approached them with a serious expression. "Why were you following us?" he demanded in his best menacing voice. The redhead instantly denied it. "Following you? Don't be ridiculous. We were just heading in the same direction." The werewolf snorted. "Right, because guys usually chase after us, darling. We don't do the chasing." Peter raised an eyebrow skeptically. "Convenient coincidence, then. You just happened to be exploring this remote corner of the dungeon after spotting us all the way back in Central Park and then waiting for hours in the entrance lobby of Babel Tower." The werewolf shrugged nonchalantly. "I have no idea what you're talking about. By the way, are you going to release us or are you planning to take advantage of us?" She added suggestively. Peter insisted, "We'll release you as soon as you tell us who you are and why you were following us." The redhead retorted, "You must have us confused with someone else. We just came into this cave to take a break." The werewolf smirked and leaned in closer. "Oh, I think I know why you captured us. Do whatever you want to me, but don't touch my friend. She's still a virgin." The redhead's eyes widened as she blurted out, "I am not a virgin." Her face turned crimson as she realized what she had admitted to complete strangers. The werewolf's smirk widened, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "So, what's the plan here? You gonna have your wicked way with us while we're all tied up, or are you the chivalrous type who's just going to let us go?" She smirked, eyes twinkling with mischief. "You know, tied up like this, you can do anything to us. We're completely at your mercy, no complaints from me, of course." Belle's face turned a deep shade of red. We're going to release you," he stammered, fumbling with his knife. "I mean, right now." The werewolf pouted teasingly. "Ah, such a gentleman. I wouldn't have minded a bit more." Excitement, she winked at Belle, sending shivers down his spine. Her red-headed companion also blushed at her suggestive remark. Belle, clearly eager to steer clear of the werewolf's flirtatious banter, hurried over to the redhead to rescue her. Peter, meanwhile, felt increasingly awkward about the werewolf's bold attitude. He pondered whether to stop Belle from freeing them before finishing his interrogation, but doubted his ability to question the werewolf effectively. She seemed too much of a nymphomaniac for a serious conversation. Besides, he didn't have concrete proof that they were actually following them. He couldn't exactly show them Jane's surveillance footage. So it was just his word against theirs. Remembering Belle's dream of being a dungeon hero rescuing a damsel, Peter couldn't resist pulling a prank. Just as Belle was poised in front of the redhead to cut the webs, Peter quietly dispelled his magic, causing the webs to vanish instantly. Belle turned to Peter with a look of hurt and betrayal, his expression akin to someone whose life's aspirations had just been shattered. Peter fought to maintain a serious demeanor as he focused on the girls, trying desperately not to burst into laughter at Belle's crestfallen face. Peter directed his question firmly at the two girls. Who are you, and which familia do you belong to? The werewolf sauntered closer, invading his personal space with a mischievous grin. She leaned in close, her voice a low purr near his ear. Now that would be telling, darling. You'll have to try harder if you want to find out my name and address. Peter maintained his composure, deadpanning, don't get the wrong idea, darling. I already have a girlfriend. The werewolf dramatically pouted. Too bad, all the good ones get taken. She draped her arm around Belle's shoulder and turned to him with a playful gleam in her eye. What about you, darling? Are you available? Belle blushed furiously, struggling to form coherent words. There's someone I like, he managed to stammer out. The werewolf girl purred teasingly, that's a shame. No point in wasting any more time here. With a swift movement, she grabbed the redhead's arm and led her towards the exit, leaving Peter and Belle standing there, slightly bewildered by the encounter. Belle turned to Peter once the girls were out of earshot. We didn't find out anything about them. Should we follow them? Peter waved off the concern. No need. Jane, send out the drone and track them. Jane's voice emanated from Peter's suit. Sure thing, Peter. Belle's eyes widened as he watched the golden spider emblem on Peter's chest liquefy, revealing a black spider symbol beneath it. The symbol detached from the suit and began hovering down the tunnel. Whoa, what is that? Belle exclaimed, both amazed and confused. Peter, now donning his mask, replied with a smirk, it's a drone. Perfect for spying. Belle, still baffled, asked, so, you've had a living thing on you this whole time? Peter shook his head, chuckling. No, Belle, it's not a living thing. It's an artifact. Belle, rubbing the back of his head, sheepishly added, oh, right. Sorry, still getting used to all this. Belle continued to pepper Peter with questions, but Peter silenced him with a quick gesture, focusing intently on the video feed from the drone displayed on his HUD. He watched as both girls effortlessly dispatched monsters shrouded in fog, swiftly destroying crystal cores with precise strikes that made slaying giant orcs seem as effortless as swatting flies. Within moments, the entire area was clear of all threats. Observing the interaction between the redhead and the werewolf through the drone's audio feed, Peter furrowed his brow. The redhead asked the werewolf with exasperation, Naira, why do you always have to act like such a slut? Naira's response was smug, I got us out without having to fight them or answer any questions, didn't I? You wouldn't have managed the same. You'd probably end up blurting out your entire life story. The redhead pouted defensively. No, I wouldn't have. I could have broken out of those webs if I had tried hard enough. Naira retorted, maybe, but they wouldn't have stood around idle if you had tried to break free. How do you think they knew we were following them from Central Park? We kept our distance. The redhead sighed in frustration. I don't know. That spider guy seems to have eyes in the back of his head. Maybe it's a skill. One thing's for certain, he's not just a level 1, at least not an ordinary one. And please, don't let Lord Anansi know we got captured by him. Naira chuckled knowingly. Do you think we could hide it even if we tried? Anansi is too intuitive and smart. He'll see right through us. The redhead nodded reluctantly. You're right, Lord Anansi will be even more intrigued when he hears how easily he captured us. It's embarrassing we got caught by level 1. Naira replied with amusement, no wonder Anansi is so interested in him. Being the god of spiders and all, do you think he might try to snatch this spider guy into our familia? The redhead speculated, who knows? Given his obsession with spiders, I wouldn't be surprised if he did. Meanwhile, Peter kept the drone following them until they reached the entrance to the 9th floor. At that point, he recalled the drone, knowing it would be challenging to spy on them without the cover of fog in the lower ceilings of the upper floors. Peter quickly briefed Bell on everything he had learned. "Do you know about the god Anansi?" he asked. Bell shook his head. "Never heard of him. Maybe we can ask Aina when we get back to the guild." Peter nodded. "Sounds like a plan, but let's spend some more time gathering crystals. I want to see how much we can earn today." Freya scowled as she peered into the dungeon through her mirror. Her plans seemed to have backfired. She had hoped that an easily manipulated deity like Apollo or Tulak would take an interest in Peter after hearing the rumors. Instead, she saw the children of Anansi spying on Peter and Bell, her destined ODR. If Anansi managed to entangle Peter in his web, extracting him would be no simple task. She hadn't directly interacted with the trickster spider god until now, as they inhabited completely different sections in the heavens. Anansi had only descended to the lower world a few years ago, but his reputation preceded him. Back in heaven even the elder gods were wary of him, recognizing his uncanny ability to outmaneuver adversaries far stronger than himself. Dealing with Anansi was like trying to handle a venomous spider. One wrong move, and you were caught in his web. Contemplating her next move, Freya reluctantly resolved to attend tonight's banquet of the gods. She usually shunned such gatherings, finding them tedious and frivolous. However, if Anansi made an appearance, it could be her best chance to get close to him and learn his intentions. And this is the end of part 9 of this amazing crossover, What If? Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.